All right. So, what's going on, my people? It's Bali over here with Soccer Parent Life. And today I have a special guest. We're going to be doing our first official, I guess you can call it pod. Um, yeah. So, just welcome to our first attempt at it. And today's topic, we didn't really think it out too well, but we're just going to kind of go with it. I think what I wanted to discuss was kind of like a parenting kind of approach to consequences and how you approach them. Because I think like a lot of the problem that you have on the sidelines kind of derives from that, where parents, for example, how can I describe this? It's basically that they're on the sideline and they want to overprotect their kids from the natural consequences that happen during the game or like the events of the game. Um, that's kind of what I want to talk about. So I know we kind of ramble on, so we're probably going to get off topic. So hopefully that's okay with you guys, the two people that'll watch.
Shout out to you too.
Shout out to the two people that are going to watch.
Yeah.
In case you don't know and you're not familiar, this is Destiny. This is my oldest daughter. Destiny has a really unique perspective because being that she was my firstborn, she's the pioneer of starting to play soccer in our family. She's the one that really wanted to play. And she was the reason why her youngest daughter was like, I want to do too.
My younger sister.
Yeah. What did I say?
You said youngest daughter.
Well, it's my youngest daughter.
Your youngest daughter.
Your
Yeah,
younger sister.
My
so,
younger sister.
Yeah, so it's the same thing.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess it's not, but it's like relative to us.
You said technically speaking.
Technically speaking. Well, it's my youngest daughter.
Okay, yeah.
Your younger sister.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason, so basically she's the one that, unfortunately, I think experienced me trying to figure this whole soccer parent thing out. And it was an evolving kind of process for me. So she has some insight on the before and after. So she's got some stories, y'all. So is this the person you want to be on here? Because I often want to share with you guys, my thoughts on things, and I think I sometimes come off like a know-it-all. That's not my intent. It's just more me sharing with you guys my things that I've learned. Good things, bad things. And when I often tell you guys like, hey, you shouldn't do this, it's not because I believe that. It's because I have personally made that mistake. So oftentimes, especially when I'm kind of feel strongly about it, that's where it comes from. So let's ask you, what was your experience like growing up when it came to like our parent, and I'll say mine because obviously your mom's not here to talk, so just say mine, my parenting style when it came to like soccer, and like what do you recall? Like as far as like what I mean, I guess the question is better as saying that when it came to like protectiveness, did you feel like I was overprotective? Did you feel like I wasn't protective enough? Like what were your feelings that you recall when you were younger?
I don't. Wow, I'm going down memory lane now. Like, wait, I haven't been down there.
Where do
in a
I
while.
start?
Yeah. I guess my earliest memories from like my first soccer team. I remember my biggest obstacle, I think, when I started my soccer career was like understanding the athlete that I was and what I needed to do to be successful in youth sports. And I don't think you were overly protective about consequences, at least from the way that I experienced it. I don't know, obviously, what your thought process was, but I just remember thinking like, oh crap, like I better get on it. Otherwise my dad's going to be on me when I get in the car. So, I don't think I fully, when I was younger, understood the bigger picture of like, oh, you might be wanting the best for me, but I was just kind of more like, oh shoot, I don't want to hear it after the game. So, that was my early experience with soccer. And then I think as I got older, I started to kind of see what you were trying to get through to me. And so I kind of realized like, okay, I do got to put the work in because I'm not going to be like the effortless athlete that gets picked up like just from speed or, agility because I wasn't naturally gifted with that. So I think I started to pick up on that lesson a little bit later on. But I think those early years were a bit rough because I think I kind of didn't really understand what the purpose was as far as like the reaction I guess I was getting from you after the game.
Why are you coming at me, bro?
You told me to.
No. Like I'm saying that's probably what you thought.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you coming at
Exactly.
me so hard?
Yeah.
It's tough to kind of go back down that path because there's so many things that I wish I would have done differently. What I can tell you, I know you mentioned something and I'm like, oh gosh, I just kind of dread when you said that you were going to hear it in the car. The reason why I look back and I'm like, what I was trying to do and where I went wrong is I actually was trying to save you from consequence. That's where it came from. That's where it came from. It's like I knew when you're older, like now that you're older and you're 24 now. Now that you're 24, you know a little bit more about the world and you kind of understand, where something is leading. Like, okay, if I do this, this is going to happen. Like, okay, so you know how to navigate the world. But when you're little, you don't know that, But it's also, it's like kind of like Gabby, Gabby's my cousin's daughter. She's little. So it's like you see her and you're like, oh gosh, if she does this, this is what's going to happen. Like you already know the story. You already kind of seen that situation. Like you've learned, life has taught you already. Yeah. And what I was trying to do at that time, I would get on you because, I'm pretty honest about it. Like I love you with all of my heart, but I'm not blind. I saw your, things that you were limited in as an athlete. And I was like, okay, cool. So I have no problem with that. I was never blind to that. I was like, how can we work with this? Like, how can we maximize your potential and whatever that leads to? That's great. Like that's where my mind was, is like, I was trying to like, okay, cool. You want to play? Well, let's make sure that you're the best player possible that you could be. Like you didn't have to be the star. Like I never cared about that. I didn't gauge a successful like weekend by whether or not you scored a goal. I never gauged it by like, oh, did we win? Like I always gauged it by like, did you do the best that you could? And did you walk off the field confident? And obviously there was a component there that I wanted you to be able to play because not because I truly cared about you playing. Because I mean, obviously I do, but it wasn't important to me. It wasn't at the top of my list. My top of my list was you being confident, you being happy, you enjoying the process and having a positive experience. So I had so many things that I was trying to juggle that I didn't realize that what I was trying to do was protect you from the consequences of your actions. And what I mean by consequences of your actions is like, okay, well, you want to be lazy. This story has to come up.
Is it the penalty kicks?
The penalty kicks. It's the penalty
no.
kicks. Have we talked about this before?
I don't know.
Not on here.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll tell it from my standpoint, and then like, because this is kind of like what I was trying to protect you from, and I was so mad at you, and I look back and I'm like, dude, like I made the situation worse. It was bad enough on you, and then I made it worse. But it was like I was trying to protect you from this outcome, and like I couldn't, and like I felt so helpless, like in that moment. And I was mad at you for putting me in that situation, which was so stupid now that I look at it. But okay. So correct me if I'm wrong because I don't trust my memory. But I remember that I think you took a couple penalties. And then I remember like you missed them and you were really hard on yourself. And I remember we bought the bow net. Because I always kind of wanted to do, my thought was, I'm not going to criticize you and then not help you. I'm not going to say to you like, hey, you didn't do this well, and then just leave it up to you and just criticize you and leave you to yourself. So I was like, okay, so if I'm going to say something, then I better put in my part. So I was like, okay, cool. So you missed these kicks. And I was just like, oh man, like, you were upset, you were bummed out. And I was just like, oh man, you got to make those. Well, duh, of course you got to make those, right? It's like a stupid thing to say to you. But I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to be like, well, you got to make those, well, then I got to help you, right? I can't just say something and then not be there for you. Like I always looked at it like it's about action, right? So remember we bought the bow net, we bought a bunch of balls, And then we practiced a lot. Like we went out there, and it was so funny because like the approach that I taught you to taking penalties was like place kickers in NFL football.
I mean, it worked though.
It worked. And, like it was funny because now that I watch, and I watch Ronaldo how he takes penalty kicks, and you watch him, and that's kind of what he does. Is he like steps, goes back, takes a couple steps high, sets up, and then he approaches the ball the same way. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because even back then, obviously, he was still doing that, but it never clicked to me that that's kind of the same concept. I didn't get it from there. I literally got it from NFL football and penalty. I was just like, hey, look, Mike, what I was like, okay, look, I don't know what the hell we're doing, but this is what we're going to try. And my theory was that if you can learn to approach the ball no matter which way you were going and you looked the same every single time, that it would have a harder time guessing where you were going because your approach was the same every single time, right? So if you're approaching it and they're like, oh, he's going to go here, she's going to guess. Anyway, the point was we practiced it so hard. And I remember you got really good at penalty kicks. Like all your balls were always low, hard, and slotted, right side netting. It was never, the high thing. I always told you that it's like, okay, at some point you can go high and, really just put it in the corners, but like that's harder. Mm-hmm. So like, let's focus on what you can do here because you don't have the power and the accuracy yet to put a top bins. So we'll focus on low and hard on either side. Slow and hard slotted. And I remember you were really good at doing that because we just practiced it so much. And I remember we went to a tournament. I can't remember where we went. I think it was up north in northern Arizona because we lived in Arizona at the time.
I think
so. And I remember you got in your feelings out during the game, but it wasn't like you were playing bad. It was because you weren't playing up to what you expected of yourself. It wasn't me saying stuff to you on the sideline. It wasn't your coaches not being supportive. It was you beating yourself up out there because you weren't playing at the level that you wanted to play. And you got down on yourself, and then your effort level went down, and you started, pouting on the field. I always say that. It's kind of harsh to say that, but that's how I describe it. It's the easiest way to describe it. Yeah. You started, pouting on the field, and I remember they subbed you out. This was late in the game. They subbed you out, and the game ended up going into, I think there was no overtime. I think it went from just a game, and it was straight to penalties after.
I feel like it was a semifinal or a final.
It was like an important game, I remember. I don't even remember the outcome of the game.
I know.
I don't even remember the outcome of the game. I just remember that I was so frustrated with you because I always talk to you about, and sometimes I think parents, I don't know, maybe I was too much, but I always kind of was honest with you, and I always described to you that you were a bubble player. And what I meant by a bubble player is just that if all of the things that are in your control you're not doing, that the bubble was going to burst and you were going to, not play. If your effort wasn't there, if you weren't doing all the little things, if your attitude wasn't right mentally, if you weren't out there putting it your all, that you were just not a gifted athlete, that you can get away with that, So I remember telling you because I already knew that I'm like, look, dude, like you got to look at the way that all this works. If you're a naturally gifted athlete, they're going to give you a lot of leeway because they're like, we kind of need that speed out there, bro. Like, she's not playing very well. She's getting my nerves, but that speed is, killer. I use speed as an example because you can't teach speed. Like people are just fast, and then people fall in love with speed. So I'm going to say speed. That'll be the attribute of the conversation. Mm-hmm. So I remember I was so mad at you. I remember I have like a photographic memory, right? So I remember looking into your eyes and just ripping you a new one about your effort and like about the consequence of and it was almost like I was more devastated that you had to go through that. Like you were okay, you were crying, but I was like more devastated that you were going through that. And it's just crazy to look back at that because I wish at that moment that I could have been there for you and been more supportive while you faced the consequences of your actions instead of being part of the consequences, because that's how you viewed me. Mm-hmm. Like when you said right now, like, oh, the drive home, like, I think the reason why you dreaded the drive home is because I was trying to save you from consequences of your actions and what I did was I became a part of the consequence, and I didn't realize that for a very long time. Took me a lot to figure that out. I haven't quite pinpointed where I figured it out, but I remember that experience because I kind of carry that like with me, like kind of like I feel like I let you down because I think I could have been a better father at that time instead of being so preoccupied with the game because you were already paying the consequences. You were already beating yourself up. That's why the reason why you didn't play to your potentials because you were already beating yourself up. You were already going through that, and I feel like at that moment I kind of just laid it to you. Yeah. I lost why we even went to that story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that. And I remember, I think I know the point of what I was trying to say is that I think where we go wrong as parents is that I think our instinct to protect our children kicks in and we want to protect them. And, in this case, you from that experience. I wanted to protect you from all the hard work you put in and how ready you were to take the PK, your next PK, and you had the perfect opportunity, big game, semifinal championship. I can't remember what it was, and you had your opportunity to show what you've been working on, like because you were really good, like you were money, bro, from the PK spot after putting in so much work. And you missed that opportunity. And I know how devastating that was, but I was so busy trying to be protective that I lost sight of what you needed at that time. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring that story up is because from me, it was coming from a good place. And I think most parents, it comes from a good place. The yelling at the ref comes from a good place. It comes from a protective kind of place. But it goes wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you recall in your end? Like, what are your thoughts?
I don't really remember that game. I feel like I remember the pouting. I remember when I realized it was going to PKs. It's funny because I think a part of me wasn't even, at that point, I wasn't even processing what I was feeling. I was just thinking like, oh, my dad's gonna be pissed. Like, so I just remember like feeling that feeling more than the disappointment. But like looking back on it, I can see exactly what you're saying, that I guess more of an emotional reaction from you is from preventing me from feeling disappointed. And I think that's, like you said, I can see how that would be common from a parenting perspective because that I can imagine would be really hard to see your kid go through that. But I also feel like that disappointment and similar experiences like that I had throughout my soccer journey were really important for my growth and building that confidence, which sounds counterintuitive, but I think disappointment and failure and missing those opportunities is going to be a part of your athlete's journey no matter what. It's just a matter of whether they feel equipped to handle that and how to pick up the pieces after, or they don't. Because if we spend the whole time like trying to prevent the other shoe from dropping, we don't ever know what to do when the shoe drops. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think a lot of what has helped me mature has been like, oh, the shoe dropped. What do I do now? And like kind of being willing to grow from that. But yeah.
And that came later.
Yeah, that came a lot later.
Well, no, what I mean by that came later. I guess I should clarify what I mean.
Yeah.
This was like early on, because how old were you at that time? You were like 10, bro.
Like 10.
Yeah. You had to be like 10. Yeah. And because you started playing late, it was early. You were playing ASO travel at that time.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. It wasn't the extra. I remember it was in Arizona, and I think it was like their travel team.
Yeah.
And this was like the first experience I had, like where I was like intense like that, where I was like, oh man. But I think I had to kind of check myself, because I think with everything, just like with everyone, I think experiences something similar. And I think my dads can relate to this more. The adrenaline kicks in, and the testosterone kicks in, you know what I mean? And you get very aggressive, which I think there's a time and a place for that. But I don't think that was the right time and place for that. And I remember like the drive home, I don't remember talking to you too much about it. I remember thinking what my thoughts were. And I remember what I kept thinking because I always kind of dwell on my actions and like, okay, I'd like reflect on like, okay, well, what could I have done better? Like, and I remember thinking to myself that I was too hard on you. I was like, damn, dude, I really messed up. Like, she needed support. Like, you needed a hug. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, Mija, we still love you. Like, yeah, you messed up. Like, yeah, you're going to look at this and be like, damn, I missed an opportunity. Me now would have approached it like that, like giving you a hug and told you, hey, you know what? We still love you. Like, yeah, you messed up out here. Like, obviously the outcome isn't what you wanted, but, we can learn from this. Like, that's what I would tell you now.
Yeah.
But at that time where I was at in my, place in life as a dad, I wasn't prepared and equipped to really do the right thing, what I think is right. And this is the whole reason why I do this account. Because, obviously, like I don't have kids playing no more. But I think there's so many lessons that I learned that I want to pass on, that I hope that there is another Destiny out there, that her dad maybe doesn't have the tools or the, perspective on it. And I don't really think there's a blueprint, especially when you have girls, man. It's such a different experience. So like, as far as like the whole, I took a different approach. I think there was still some hiccups along the way. But I started kind of the process of changing the way that I view things. It slowly, it was a long path, but I think when I really started doing well was when we moved back to California and you started playing Camarillo at the ASO over there. And I started kind of understanding a little bit better, like how to help you. And then I just progressed better. I think my Arizona, what do you guys, Arizona era was not a good one. I think it improved when we moved over here. And as time, your sister really challenged me. If she's watching this, Aaliyah, bless you, I love you. But she really challenged me just because I feel like you and I connect because we're very similar. I think sometimes you're very forgiving. Like, you got a big heart and you understand when things come from a good place, and you give me a pass even though I'm wrong. I think this is true since you've been very little. You've always understood that, and you're like, okay, look, I don't like that. Made me feel this way, but I know he loves me, and he's going to get a pass. It's not like that, but I always kind of felt like you were like that as a kid, which is the polar opposite with your sister. Your sister is very unforgiving.
She's the Punisher.
She's the Punisher, bro. Like, she's so unforgiving. And what I mean by that is kind of like what you do and what you cause, you're responsible for it. Like, there's no like, oh, you came from a good place. I don't care where it came from.
For sure.
I don't care where it came from. Like, no, I'm not cool. But she, the thing about it though is that she challenged me so much because she's not disrespectful. If she was disrespectful, she would have given me a way out. If she would have talked back, if she would have been that type of kid, I think it would have been harder for me because I would have had the perfect excuse to continue my behavior because I know, like, she's being disrespectful. Mm-hmm. But the fact that she was quiet and she didn't say really much to me, but then she wasn't affectionate, or she avoided me. Or, like her little manner, how Aaliyah is. She's very particular. She's very different. I think that it's almost like, dude, like God put her in this earth and he said, she's going to test you.
I was level 1, she's level 2.
Well, it was more like Destiny's going to start you on that path and Aaliyah's really going to test you. Yeah. And I think I credit you in many ways for being tough, but yet loving and understanding at a time when I needed it. And then I thank her for being her and forcing me to be more flexible as a parent, because it had to be a completely different approach, man. Like, dude, I would have burned her out if she was the firstborn. and she was you, she would have hated soccer. She would have hated me. She would have quit playing, and it would have been my fault. So it's just crazy how things work out like that, and here we are on here talking about it. But now, I guess when we're talking about like consequences and how the approach changed, I started taking on a role later on of more facilitating, kind of like helping you. And when the consequence came, like if you didn't play much. Like I remember, it's another story. I remember when you played for VFC here in Ventura, and I remember, you know, I thought they were really fair on that team. I really thought they were fair, and we went to LA, and I remember you were there, and I think you had been playing there for a year or so, or something like that. And I think we drove all the way over there. You played like 5 minutes towards the end of the game, and I remember coming off the field. You know how we see you, and we walked to the car after, and I remember putting my arm around you, and I remember you crying, and I remember asking you, why are you crying? And you were talking about like I only played 5 minutes. Like that's, I'm really mad. And kind of like describing that. I don't remember what you said word for word, but it was basically the point was that you were upset and you were disappointed because you felt like you were disappointing me. Mm-hmm. I think that was like the undertone. It's like you felt like you were disappointing me. And I remember telling you like, dude, it's fine. You went out there for 5 minutes and you gave everything you had for 5 minutes. Like you went out there, you played hard. I was proud of you for something as simple as I remember you coming in and you sprinting out on the field and just like you're ready to go. And it's like, yeah, it's 5 minutes, but you weren't pouting. You didn't come out there and we're like, oh, it's only 5 minutes. We're winning. It's the end of the game. You didn't do any of that. You said, oh, fuck, I'm coming out here. I'm going to do the best I can. And I was proud of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you won't understand that until you have your own kids and you understand that, at least for me, the way I look at it, there's nothing you can do or not do that's going to change how I see you. Like the love that I think a parent has for their child or should have, because obviously there's people that are questionable. But it's like we as parents are the only ones that should love you unconditionally. There is no condition. You don't have to be a star. You don't have to do anything. Like the only things that I ask of you, and these are more like asks, like I ask of you that you give effort, and you gave me effort. You went out there for your 5 minutes and you tried your hardest, and I can see it, and I was proud of you for that. And it's like I started taking that approach more. The consequence, like that was a consequence too. Like, okay, cool. Well, what are we doing? What can we do? I remember having that conversation. What can we do? Well, I don't think I'm practicing well enough. I remember you talking about your practice. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, then that's good. That's it. So you're not playing because you don't believe you're practicing at a level that you need to be practicing. So let's focus on that. And, this goes back to consequence. Like I didn't go to the coach and complain about you playing only 5 minutes because that's what we want to do is, this is where parents go wrong is that we see you coming off the field. We feel your pain. We want to protect you from that pain. And so therefore we want to go fight your battle and we're going to go fight with the coach.
Well, and that like kind of indirectly communicates to your athlete like, oh, that they're not capable of doing that on their own. Like, it's like you're showing, without meaning to, I don't think this is ever, like, the intention, but when you invest in the athlete and, like, they're working, like you said, like, I identified that, like, I need to work on my practices, and focusing there showed me that, like, okay, I can put the work in and I can get the results. I just have to do it. Mm-hmm. Versus like if you were to go to the coach, then it's like I no longer have an active role in that. So when I do get results, if I do get results, it's not because of something I did, it's because of something you did or because of something, and you're not building that confidence, which is ultimately the goal. And when you get the results, you don't feel as connected to the results because you're just like, well, I got it because my parent
my dad went
to complained to the coach. Yeah.
So. And I think that's true. That's what you're saying that the how can I say this? I think we steal your glory, because I think most coaches are good people, man. Sometimes coaches get things wrong, but I don't think it's intentional. I just think it's not simple. They got we have one child on the team to worry about, sometimes two if they got a sister or whatever, and they got like 15, 16 to worry about. So I think oftentimes it's not intentional. Sometimes there's some other stuff going on, but I think generally speaking, if you were to make a general statement, I think coaches care most of the time, and I think they try their best. And sometimes they just forget to put someone in. Like, oh shit, you can put her in. Like, like I think that happens too sometimes. But I think the key to it was me understanding that, we've seen parents and players when you're like, they really think their kid is better than she actually is, and it's almost like you hype your kid up so much that you hurt them because they don't understand why they're not playing. Like, dude, I'm God's gift to the soccer world. Like, my dad hypes me up, bro. Like, why ain't I playing,
Yeah.
And they practice like crap. They don't freaking, perform on the field. They don't make the right passes. They're making all kind. And I think the lack of like humility in that situation, I think hurts players. Because then they can't self-reflect and say, okay, well, what am I doing wrong? Because they don't see him as like, it's me. It's like, oh, no, it's them. And then it makes it even worse. And I'm like, oh, Coach Bob, what an asshole. He didn't play you. Like, we drove all the way here. What a jerk. I'm going to go talk. He's going to hear me. Blah, blah, blah. And what I'm doing to you is I'm messaging to you. You're powerless. There's nothing you can do about this. It's not your fault. You can't adjust. And I think that when you look at something and you don't look at it like you have the power to change it, I think that is a big problem. And that's not just in soccer. That's something that you hear me say that all the time when it comes to life. Even things like that are serious, where you're like, nah, bro, like, that's not your fault. I still look at them like that. I still look at them like that. Like, like for, I don't know, decisions, with our household or whatever. And I'm like, damn, I should have done that. And you can honestly say, like, bro, you're 19 years old with a family. Like, you did pretty damn good. You know what I mean? But I look back at that and my expectation is like, no, man, like, I could have done better. And the reason why I look at it that way is because I have all the excuses in the world, but excuses don't let you grow. Me saying I could have done better makes me believe that I can do better. And then that motivates me to figure out ways to do better. You know what I'm saying? So in that scenario, like, even if the coach is an asshole, even if the coach is wrong, even if the coach is showing favoritism, even if he's playing his girlfriend's kid and you'll never be able to play him, you know what I mean? Even if you know all that, you don't focus on that. You say, like, you know what? There's outside noise, but we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on you. Like, what can you do better? All right, cool. Let's work on that. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I approach things now, and that's kind of like what I think parents, that's what I would pass on to other parents that have kids. It's kind of like there's, now that you're 24, the importance of that. With your struggles sometimes, as an adulting. Gone are the days of just playing sports and having fun, right? Now it's like bills and decisions and, making a mistake and like, damn it, I should have done this instead of this, or like, those kinds of things. Now that they come, like once they beat you up because you're like, damn, I'm dealing with this consequence. Like, damn it, I'm going to do this. Like if you're like, okay, cool, that's fine. It is what it is, but what can I do better? Like that refocus, because you still need it sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I'm telling you this because I do this for myself. When I'm struggling, when I'm doing something wrong, like for example, like with this stuff that I do online, like I'm stuck at like 19,200 on Instagram, and it's I beat myself up where like, dude, what did I do wrong? Like, I'm shadow banned on Instagram.
You're too real. You're too real.
No, it's because I post a lot of stuff that I know Instagram's gonna flag me for. I let people speak and say what they gotta say, and I need to censor it a little bit more. So it's my own fault. It's my own fault, but it is what it is, man. This is where I'm at. So that's why we can put this on YouTube. That's a whole different topic. But, actually, I got a good question for you.
Uh-oh.
someday, if you choose to have kids, which you've talked about it in the future, obviously not anytime soon, whenever you decide that, how are you? What would you do different if you have a little destiny? What would you do different that wish that I would have done?
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna drop it on you,
I
bro.
know. Like, can you give me at least a chance to prepare?
Well,
Wow.
no. It's because if I give you time to prepare, I'm not gonna get a raw answer.
Yeah.
And I want you to be, raw. Even if it puts me in a bad light, I don't care. Like the point
Yeah.
is to make a point, and talk about it, like good, bad, and ugly. Obviously it's
Yeah.
different too, though, because you would be a mom. I know people are gonna be mad when I say this, but it's a different role.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that you mentioned that you adopted in your parenting later on is kind of what I would continue with my kid one day, which is just kind of letting them guide that process of, like, for example, we talked about that penalty kick story. Oh, not the water heater. What is that?
It's the water here. We're in the
Yeah.
garage, y'all. Don't judge me.
Don't judge. But like the penalty kick example that you gave me, kind of like when my kid's going through that disappointment, kind of working, depending on their age, obviously. I think earlier on this is more important, but guiding them through kind of coping with that emotion and then working with them through the problem solving process and kind of making that guided when they're early on in age and then kind of fading out as you get older, so that they're learning to do that process on their own, and as they get older they're able to take some disappointment and create an action plan from that for how to go forward, because I think that is a big problem with athletes, is that we get stuck in that disappointment and we don't know where to go. And we just stay stuck there, we internalize it, and then it doesn't help us grow as people or as athletes. So I don't necessarily know that that's something you didn't do. I think that's just something that was delayed for me, But yeah, I think that's a process that I would emulate with my future kid.
Oh man! Now, I want to meet Destiny, the mom, someday. I hope, God willing, I'm here, man. Just because I think when the first time your kid gets thrown down hard on a dirty ass play.
Oh, I would lose it.
You
But
see what I'm saying?
No, this is the ideal plan. This is not the actual.
Well, no, I'm saying that to you. I'm saying that to you because I don't know. I have nothing to support this claim with. Okay, this is just an opinion.
All right.
I think moms have the hardest time with it. There's some dads that have a hard time with it, but moms really have a hard time with it. They go full mama bear. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny. I haven't wanted to start beef with the mama bears. I was going to make a meme. I stopped myself from making this meme because I was like, you know what? The ladies are going to have a fit about this, but they're not going to understand the message. So maybe someday I'll explain it. But I'll just kind of, I'll just tell you kind of what the overall kind of thought was with it. I remember watching a video, and the term itself, mama bear, comes from how protective bears are. Like, I'm not an animal expert, but I think it's common knowledge that a mother bear is the one that you don't want to see because she will die for her cubs, right?
Yeah.
Like we all know that the male bear will probably look at the situation and be like, oh, is this smart? Should I do this? Maybe mama bear won't care what it is. She'll fight a grizzly. Even though she's gonna lose, she's gonna fight to the death for her cubs. So that there's that component to dealing with the mother bear, right? And that's where the mama bear term comes from, in my opinion. Where kind of like a mom is willing to do anything for their cub. But I saw a video one time, and they were filming it like, I don't know where it was, but it was in the snow. And then the mama bear, how they shovel, or they get these machines and they push the snow out on the roads, and it builds kind of like a berm,
snowplow?
like a snowplow. Yeah, the snowplow.
Yeah.
And it pushes it out, and then the snow's kind of high, right? And I saw the mama bear jumped, kind of climbed up from a kind of like steep kind of a part of the snow to the top, and then she had two cubs with her, and then the cubs were kind of trying to get up and they were struggling, and then the mom's just looking at them and just kind of casually walking, kind of looking around, making sure they're okay, but she's letting them try to get up. And they struggle, they go up until they, a couple minutes later, they find a spot and then they finally make it. But I thought that was very symbolic for the fact that even the mama bear that will fight to the death for her cubs will allow them to struggle and kind of face adversity. And, obviously make sure they're okay, but not protect them from that. She didn't go down there, pick them up, and then bring them up, pick them up and bring them up. She didn't do that. She just watched them as they struggled. And I thought it was a beautiful thing, but I was like, I was going to make a meme about it, but I was like, no, that delivers me wrong, man. Because I think sometimes memes are funny, and I think you can really send a message, but I know what I call team ovaries. You know that phrase, that's going to get me canceled when they watch.
I know.
Team ovaries going to get
You're going to get canceled before you get started. Come on.
But yeah, but mama bears I know would see that and will immediately take it from like I'm saying that you shouldn't protect your kids, and that's not what I'm saying. At least that's what I think. That's what kept me from doing that. Could be wrong. Many mama bears may be able to understand what I'm saying, but I think that whole concept of protecting your kids from consequences, I think once you understand how to implement that and allowing them to kind of venture out in the world and using the confinements, it's like how they do experiments, and they do a controlled environment experiment, and it's like the gold standard, right? Because then you actually know what happens. I look at soccer, sports in general, but we'll say soccer. Youth soccer, I see it as an opportunity in a controlled environment to let them face real world consequences for their actions that are not going to hurt them long term. Now, granted, you can make an exception for injuries and stuff like that, but generally speaking, like if you don't try hard, you might not play. If if you're not going to be willing to sacrifice and work hard and do all, you might not see the results in your abilities as you want. You know what I mean? Like it's just such a raw environment, and I think it's perfect for that. But if you don't approach it like that and you want to fight their battles, like if your kid's not putting in work, they're not developing, they're not playing well, they're not doing everything that they are supposed to be doing, and then you go to the coach and you fight their battles, you're doing it all wrong. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a time and a place, and I don't really think we really should be even talking to coaches about stuff like that. I think when you talk to coaches, more like, hey, look, what are they not doing well? And the ideal situation is that when you're younger, we do that. As you get older, it should be more like, hey, well, go talk to your coach and then see what he or she tells you, and let's work with that. Now, the thing is some coaches, they bullshit you. They don't actually know what you're not doing. Like we've seen that, right?
Yeah.
And when you have a coach like that, but you still want to try.
Yeah.
You still want to go through the process of like, okay, I don't have the confidence in this fool that he's actually paying attention to me and he can actually tell me what he thinks that I could, improve on. But let's try anyway. Mm-hmm. Then take that and then try anyway. Mm-hmm. And, the process of doing that in itself has value to it.
Yeah.
Even if you know that dude's a douche, mm-hmm. no names.
I know.
No names. Yeah, I mean, I think people that follow the Instagram account know who I'm talking about when it comes to you.
Yeah, I think that becomes a part. That's a good starting point. I think, like you said, if their coach is non-cooperative, obviously at the end of the season it becomes like a decision of like, okay, do I stick around? Do I not? But I think if you start with that process of like, okay, where can I take accountability? Where can I get going? And how can I start working? That's a good place to start rather than, going Karen. We don't need any more Karens out there, guys.
Cariñas.
Oh, cariñas.
All right, man. But that's pretty much all I kind of wanted to say. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add. No, that's pretty much it. All right, guys. So we'll go ahead and wrap up this first episode, and we'll leave you guys with that. So till the next one, guys.
Bye.